John Akers, thanks for joining us on the GGB podcast. It's great to have you here. We're going to talk about player tracking, something you know a lot about, having invented it. So we're looking forward to this conversation. On the phone with us today is Frank Legato, our editor. He'll be writing the story for our March edition, and we're looking forward to this discussion today.
Okay, John, to start out, just give us a little background on the development of the concept of player tracking, how it came about, and what you did to make it a reality.
Sure. We're going back into the early 80s, let's say, let's start in the 70s when Bill Harrah was doing premium points up in Reno at the Harrah's Casino there. The idea was that as customers played, they would hand out little pieces of paper that said you've played this much, and if you accumulated those little pieces of paper, you could go down into a premium points room and trade a certain number of those papers for toasters or transistor radios or whatever gifts that you might want to have. And he was pretty successful with that, except there was a lot of fraud involved. There were a number of girlfriends or boyfriends of people that were working on the floor that got a lot of transistor radios. So Steve Wynn saw that, and he wanted to do something more, and he started he had us create a ticket dispenser, just like you see in an arcade, that we put on the side of dollar slot machines. And for every $50 that you put into the machine, a ticket would come out. And if you go into Golden Nugget in Las Vegas on a Friday night, you'd see just streams of tickets hanging out the sides of machines. And originally we'd go around and say, can we take those tickets off and store them for you? And people would say, no, I want people to recognize what a good slot player I am. And there was pride taken in having those lists of tickets. And we were building ticket dispensers for several years. This was when I had a company called EDT. And Harrah's saw the ticket dispenser and they liked the idea, but they didn't want to pay the price we were charging, so they hired someone else to design them one. And they put it in, I think in December of about 82 is when Harrah's went live with their ticket dispensers. But they had, Reno is a cold, dry climate, and they didn't do their design quite as well as they could have. And one cold night after these ticket dispensers were first put in, somebody walked across the casino floor on a brand new carpet, touched the ticket dispenser, and got a big jolt of static electricity, which caused the customer to jump back, but it also caused the ticket dispenser to turn on and spit out all of its tickets. And so pretty soon, not going unnoticed, everybody was shuffling across the floor and touching their ticket dispensers, and they emptied those things out pretty darn quick. And in the meantime, I had gone to Bophuthatswana, South Africa, to sell ticket dispensers and progressive jackpot systems, and went to a casino over there called Sun City, and it was the first time I'd ever checked into a hotel where they did not give me a key. Instead, they gave me a card. And looking back, it's kind of hard to imagine they used to give you hotel room keys, but that's what they used to do. And I was so impressed by this card, which had little punched holes in it. You slid it in the door, and it would read the holes, and it would open the door for you, that I kept the card. And I got back from South Africa on Christmas Eve of 82, and my wife was putting together the Christmas stuff for the kids. It was late at night, and I'm sitting there with my briefcase, and of course this was before voicemail and all that other stuff, so I had all these letters and things I had to open, and one of them was from Harrah's about their problem with their ticket dispenser and what could we do to help them, and another one was the card from the hotel room at Sun City, and then also on my list of notes was complaints about ticket dispensers, that it was a lot of work to keep them refilled, and they never knew who their good players were until they turned them in. And so when my wife was putting out the Christmas presents, she had this one toy. It was called a Texas Instruments Speak and Spell, and it had this beautiful vacuum fluorescent display on it. And I said, well, where'd this come from? How much did it cost? Because we were selling lesser quality displays for $500 for progressive jackpots, and she says paid $50 for it. And I go, wow. So I got a screwdriver and took it apart, and the kid never got the Speak and Spell, but what we ended up doing is saying, gee, what if I took this card reader and this display and put those on a machine and started tracking points electronically. And that's how the first player tracking system came up. So in response to Hera's request about what we could do about their failed ticket dispensers, we proposed that we do an electronic version. And I would guess, even today, you can go into casinos and find those original speak and spell displays on slot machines.
Yeah.
And that's how it all started.
So how did this relate to the actual player tracking at the tables? As a dealer in the early 80s in Atlantic City, I'd have players come to the table and they'd ask to be rated. I'd call the floor person over. He'd start the slip. So could you do that at the same time on slot machines in those days?
We started on slots because slots have an automatic recording. The problem with the table games are that it's manually rated. And so it's an estimate of play. And there was never an agreement or a simple way to do it on tables. I think that we're finally getting there. But unless you do the automated bet measurement,
right,
it's not as objective
sure,
as player tracking on slot machines.
Yeah, and it's just a human observation. There was no mechanical things going on there. Right.
Yep.
Okay.
And they still do it that way by and large in the pit today.
Yes. Yeah, Jay Walker has an RFID. He bought the RFID patents from IGT and what used to be Micon that became Progressive Gaming, and they're doing a bet measurement in Macau on baccarat tables, but it's so hard to overcome the way we've always done things. The desire is to do the same thing tomorrow that you did yesterday.
Right. Right.
And table games, when we first started doing player tracking, the table guys always said, well, we're different. You know, we need to pay personal attention to our players. And there's truth in that.
Sure.
But you also are not nearly as objective by human estimation as you think you are.
Sure.
And as we reach down into needing to have lower value players, this mass market, as we talk about it, we need to automate more and more of these things, and hopefully that RFID stuff will get cheap enough that we can have automated measurement.
Okay.
Were the cards, the player cards identifying the players, was part of the original system, right?
Yes, that's right. We created a player card. Now, for the first, from 83 until probably 1990, the majority of cards were not mag stripe. They were punched hole cards, what they call Hollerith cards, because it was hard to get a good mag stripe reader that would work in a casino and that was cheap enough to put on every slot machine. And probably by the mid 90s, everything had changed to mag stripe, and that's where we're at today, as archaic as that is now.